man.
Yes, Cosy.
Thank you very much for doing this. It's good to see you.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, the studio thing. It's definitely got to happen, mate. I definitely need a studio. I said this on the on Matt Henderson's podcast that I did a couple of weeks ago that it'd be great just to find an office somewhere that I can just have this all set up somewhere permanent and don't have to set this all up every time. It's great floating around in different places and that, but it would be cool to have a centralised location. But
It's always good to. I mean, and there's been a bit of a following for this that I've watched, and God, I haven't played in I don't know how many years. 2005, I think was my last year.
Is that your last year? 2005. I was gonna ask,
but I've watched every podcast, and it's just been, it's been pretty awesome to see the eras of cricket, and to see the people come through that some I've not played with, and never ever seen play. I've seen, I've watched a few of the finals for New Zealand versus Australia, and it's pretty cool to see what people have to say about the generations of cricket that have come through. So it's when you called me, it was like, oh, okay. I don't know if anyone had television when I started.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, you're part of a group of players, and I said this to Kirby as well. But you're part of a group of players that, for me is really, really special because you guys were playing at such a high level when I first started and saw and was encapsulated by the sport. So it's very special for me to have guys like yourself around that we can actually talk about this too, and about, for other players that I play around now still, how I'm doing that, I don't know, but and have them understand, where the game used to be. I know we were just talking about it before the podcast, but it was just about allowing those people just to understand, some of the players that are around, the achievements, the special things that were done, even if it's about, good old indoor stories, of different one-off events, that are just so special.
Oh God, there's so many of those, and I think for everyone that's come through, it's affected them all in a different way, and I know the players that I've played with and against, and I've changed over the times as well that I was playing, from going from, I guess, softball to indoor to outdoor, and it was the natural transgression, is to go to outdoor, because at times when I was playing softball, it was just I was looking for the front foot drive rather than actually a softball swing.
Yeah, so talk us through that, because when we first met, we weren't that close when I was first around, but so it was pretty well known that you and Keith and Paula as well had come through. Your sister had come through from softball. Yeah. So how did you first find indoor cricket? How did that first happen?
Oh God, my auntie was GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, which was behind Royal Oak, or next door to Royal Oak Sanitarium, and she said, "Oh, will you come down and play?" And I remember my father taking me down there to play, and Keith and we batted and scored. I don't know, I think we might have scored 104. It was just all about smashing the ball. It was just like, God, this game's quick, and we were probably playing a D grade competition, but it was just like never played before. Held the bat like a softball bat.
How old are you?
14.
And so it was all through softball skill that your hand-eye coordination, and you were able to just hit an indoor ball. It must have been so easy.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's in saying that, I went back to softball after I'd played cricket in indoor, and it was so easy to play softball again. It was so easy to hit a ball. It was you could almost block everything out, and it was just so quiet, and all you saw was the ball. But we went from there, and then my dad had a company team that we played for, New Zealand Express. So we played for them for years, and it was just, I think one year someone picked me up for Penrose because we were playing out in that area, and that was I think that was my first club I ever played for.
Wow.
And then I think in one night I played C's because I was a C grade player, and then B's and then A's, and that's where I think the whole idea of indoor changed for me. I guess back then you were fit enough to play all these games, and you were fit enough to play them at what I thought was a reasonable level. Obviously, there's another level above that when you're playing Super League and Provincial in New Zealand. But it was still exciting. It was fun. It was quick. It was over.
I don't remember anything about the Penrose Centre. So was that like a 2-court centre? Do you remember where it was?
Three
3-court centre.
courts. Yeah. Oh, look, it was. Oh God, if you came out off Mount Wellington, turn off, and you head towards. Oh God, what was the barbecue factory?
Oh right, yeah, I know.
Back to the right. It was back over on your right hand side.
Cool.
And it was.
It's a rundown, usual 3-court centre.
Yep.
Smokers everywhere.
Yep. And you looked at
Steinlager everywhere.
And you looked at it, and you thought, God, is this the game of the future? And I just thought it was the game for me for now. At the time, I was at the top of my game for softball. Then I was transitioning from softball to cricket because all my mates went and played cricket, and it was just like, God, is that what we have to do? Do we have to stand around in whites for ever and a day, chasing a leather ball round?
Not an indoor.
If you didn't bat, you didn't bowl.
Yeah.
You
Not
stood
an
there
indoor
and
though,
fielded.
right?
No.
Yeah, an indoor you do all three things, and
that
it was
was
quick as.
And that was the cool thing, and I've always been a firm believer that you had to be above 75% in 2 of the 3, or you had to be exceptional from 2 of the 3, and you had to be above 75% for the third one. There was always, I don't know if in my time I saw too many players that were 3 out of 3, that were just exceptional at everything.
Yeah.
There was always that weakness, but one counterbalanced the other, if that made sense. I was never a great bowler, and I always felt I was an amazing batter. Never ever won a batter of the tournament, won a bowler of the tournament. Again, don't know how. Well, I do. They were Maccas, they were pivots. They were
Bring 'em back.
Blazers.
Yeah.
They were these hockey balls covered in leather that hit a bat and you just thought something had exploded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it hit
if it hit you, look
something
out.
Something had. And, it was, and they never took the shine. It didn't matter.
No,
the shine
they
went
lasted
because
5
they were
games.
just so heavy.
Yeah.
But you had all these, and I think that obviously the game changed as indoor progressed, and I think it had to. For the longevity of the game, for the excitement of the players, and now with some of the stuff that's televised. And I heard you talking about the televised stuff as well, that how do we make it more exciting, and can we get it there? And you watch some of the games, and yeah, it's for me, it's almost like Test cricket. It's not exciting unless you know how Test cricket's played.
Yeah.
And you know that bowler's setting him up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was me from the start. And now being able to play alongside my bro. And then, I remember one of the trainings at Penrose, Bots came over to me. It's a common denominator for a lot of players. Came over to me and said, I want you to hit the ball off the top of the stumps. And I think I threw 1,000 balls before I even hit the ball off the top. I could hit the pins, no problem, and I'd go to walk off, and he went, no, the ball. Not the pins, anyone can hit the pins. I was just like, so I'd have been there, hour and a half, just throwing a ball, but loving it, not, it was just something, okay, cool, I want to challenge myself. If this is what's going to challenge me, that's the way to go. And
Anyone can hit the stumps.
Yep.
Interesting, eh? I think the way that things, and especially you see it in the Australian cricketers, the fielders, especially the guys who really, really are world class in their position, are encouraged. They're encouraged. Their first priority is to hit the stumps, and that service is absolutely important. But at the end of the day, hit the stumps, and you've got a wicket.
Yep.
And if you're really close, then your back sticks or keeper should be there and good enough.
Yep.
To be able to assist in the run out, right? So the motivation has changed a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I always believed that my back stumps was there to pick up the bails. I was going to hit the stumps. You can just stand there and just tidy up the bails once I've hit them. But I guess I modelled my game around something like that, as being able to hit pins, not throw it so someone had to do some extra movement.
Let's talk about that, man, because you've been you're very distinctive. When I first started, and we spoke about this before we kicked off tonight, but your attitude towards things was extremely different to, like Keith. Keith was very confident, but you were over the top on a lot of things, and maybe not internally, but certainly externally to other people. You wanted to place your attitude stamp out there on other people so they knew you were here and you were just backing yourself.
Yeah. I wondered if this had come up. Oh, look.
Where did that come from? Where did it stem from?
Oh, look, I would probably tell you the story offline before I tell you online. But we grew up in quite a strict sporting environment. It was about winning. Here's an example. And I can probably tell you this one. We were playing a semi-final for a sevens competition. We're playing, I think it was out at Helensville. And this was just rugby. And it scored under the post. So I took the ball back. My father was linesman. And I thought, mate, I've got to learn to kick with my left foot. So I placed the ball, kicked with my left foot, and missed it. And the old man went, I could have done better left-footed. I said it was left-footed. And he said, you're out. You're not playing finals.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was an environment where you win at all costs. It's about winning. It's not about coming second. And I know that cliche, no one remembers who comes second. No, there was no second. You know, if you didn't win, you know, there's consequences, and the consequences are you either were dropped from a side or that's what we did when we were young. It was about, even Keith and I, when we in the backyard, you know, we used to play cricket. We used to score 1,000 runs like everyone does. There's a hole in the fence, and if you hit it in there, it's 1,000 runs. And Keith and I used to have, because we didn't have a wealthy upbringing, so we had those like egg cartons wrapped around our legs, and we'd bowl a proper cricket ball. And if you got over 1,000 runs, then you could have a long run up and bowl a proper cricket ball. And all of a sudden, the game became quite fierce, and Keith and I became quite competitive. Sometimes I think it's to the detriment of our relationship in the game, because I didn't want my brother to be better than me. I didn't want anyone to be better than me. So I always had that. You know, sure, I became cocky at one stage. There was I know there was a part in my career where I was an ass. And did I like that? Well, I didn't see it. You know, it took a few people to take my legs out from underneath me for me to see it. But it was all about winning. It was never about, I hated losing. I sat we lost a final that I flew down for the semis in Hamilton and lost a final. And Mandy could even, back this up. I was crying in the car because I couldn't win the game for my bro's team. You know, it was upsetting. So, yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself to achieve, and with that, I expected everyone else to do the same. So, win at all cost. I'll do my job at 150%. You better do yours. Yeah.
That's like not just to throw names around, but what you read a lot about guys like Michael Jordan, where he was an amazing leader and an amazing captain of his team or skipper, because he made the other players better. And you could argue that's probably number one job of a skipper, is to make the players and the rest of the team be better players, right? And he was that, but he was extremely hard on himself and his teammates as well. And sometimes, like you say, to the detriment, right?
Yeah, and I've had some amazing teams that I've played for, amazing teams that I've played against, amazing captains, amazing coaches, and at the time, I guess maybe I didn't portray how good these guys were, because I was selfish. It was about winning. It wasn't about, some of the series, when I heard Kirby talking, I was better than any Australian that went on the court. And if I didn't believe that, then I was just another player. So, yeah, look, it's just one of those things that's the way that era for me happened. And yeah, got to play with some amazing people at the same time, which we're pretty lucky with, and yeah, see some amazing people prior to me as well. So as much as I'm part of the Boyd and Stu and Robbie Kerr era, there's the Rog Kinsella era, and there's the Steve Smith era who played point for New Zealand, and Dave Ponting, and all these guys that were they were there before us.
Yeah.
You know, they
Mark Young. So
Mark
Youngie
Young.
is one guy whose name I have not brought up. He's lost in the wilderness in Australia somewhere, I think. And I think Tarsh Williams might still have a contact for him, which would be
I've got his
amazing.
contact.
Oh, have you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Every
I'll
now
have to
and
get that
again,
off you, man.
I Facebook him and
Oh,
see some
that's
comments.
awesome. That's awesome. Extremely privileged to have played with Mark. Yeah, he was. But again, you're one of the few players that had that attitude that walked the talk.
Yeah.
And let's face it. When I first joined, when I was around 80, I first started when I was 85, so 11 years old. And that was just playing your junior leagues, intermediate leagues during the day at Patch. And, you hear a buzz of going, well, adults play this as well. It's at nights, rah, rah, rah. So, before you know it, you're sort of coming down and having a look to see what's going on. Jeff Butler, a very good friend of mine, was playing. He was a couple of years older than me, so he was around playing at the time and getting into cult stuff. And
I just want to add in there, and I know Butsy will listen to this.
will he?
Him and I ran a triple. Against Raw Oak. Yeah, but and I don't think I could run a single now, but it was. Yeah, I'll just add that in. Carol.
That's funny. Jeff was an amazing indoor cricketer. He was so skilled, and what a great captain and leader as well. Of his team. But the whole era, the first time when I first started seeing you guys play, like on a Tuesday night, where the in-house league was as fierce as a Super League tournament. Hell, it was full on, man. And when I first saw you, and then it was just about the '87 New Steel Cup, where you guys as a New Zealand team went over and played state champs on the New Steel Cup and won it. Did you win it?
No.
Did you make the final?
We made the well, I think we made the semis.
They selected like a world team out of it, and you made it.
Yeah, Chris Harris and I made it.
Right. And that's when that was like the first time I ever heard the name Wayne Enoka. And then from there on, it was just, you're this guy who just knows he's really good, thinks he's really good, and is really good. And there's actually a lot of guys that can have that attitude, but don't always show it. Like, mate, you're at the top of the best players around in New Zealand for quite some time.
Yeah, I think.
And you were so young.
Yeah, when we went to.
You were 16 at that New Steel Cup, right?
Yeah, when we went to that New Steel Cup, we had the pleasure of 3 sets of brothers. Obviously, Keith and I, Stu and Boyd, Chris and Ben. Yeah. And then there was another set of brothers from Wellington that actually missed out. So we could have, we had Torps that was with us. Royden? No. Royden Smith?
Is it before the Dools were around?
Yeah, it was. I mean, the Dools were there, but they really, that family came and made a statement in more ways than one, on and off the field.
Yeah.
But, when they hit indoor, it was, here we go.
Yeah.
This is formidable. I'm not sure if, I don't know if Dooley ever played with Link and Gav. I don't remember.
Really?
I don't remember playing in a game where Link, Gav, and Cy were there. Always Link and Gav, and then Cy was still in county, so they were in Wellington.
Yeah.
But seeing that was also nice to have a push as well. It's just like, okay, new kids on the block. We've got to tame these guys. So the training's got harder. I spent more time just trying, I guess, to perfect the craft and the art of the game. Softball allowed me to have an arm that was relatively quick. So it was a matter of, I think it was a matter of receiving the ball in the right position to just be able to throw.
Right.
So it eliminated any turns, any twists. If I could pick the ball up and my feet were in the right position, I could throw.
Let's talk about that. That's a great segue into something I wanted to bring up, right?
Yeah.
Because when I had the Bots podcast, he says, I didn't quite realise how much you guys had actually trained and the effort that was put in by not just the players, but Bots as well, picking guys up from the other side of Auckland just to turn up at trainings, right? So what skills, because you were an amazing legside fielder, and the skills that you had there, and the game lended itself to being able to take great outs at that level, in that area, because guys were always hitting flat, especially leg side. Guys were down upping and playing that many down up pull shots. Pull shots were being hit flat into the net in that stage. So you did receive quite a bit of ball. Mm-hmm. So, but you were slapping stumps down. I remember you slapping the stumps down at the bowler's end from a right hand slap from leg side. I remember seeing a lot of stuff out of you. So talk to me technically about what you learned out of softball that allowed you to get yourselves in those positions at leg side to be able to receive and field.
Softball was, I always believed if you had a quick arm, you needed to have accuracy. There's no use. I mean, we had a guy that played softball with, and he had a bullet. This guy, no one wanted to stand behind it, but it wasn't necessarily always accurate. So you had to change the mindset, and the release had to be fast. So all of a sudden, the release is quick. If I can have my feet in the right position, it just needs to be a release. It doesn't matter how quick it is.
Right. What about off balance?
There was no off balance.
Right. You need to be on balance. Right.
There was no off balance, and off balance creates mistakes. So I had to work on that. I had to work on the fact that if I was off balance, how could I do it? I guess that's where the slap came in. If I'm off balance, I may as well slap the ball.
And that's instinct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I haven't got enough time to pick this and throw it. I need to slap this and get it to the stumps as quickly as possible, and I need to hit to run the guy out.
And I remember trainings we had, and Keith and I had just come from softball, so we had Keith had a heavy arm. I didn't have a heavy arm. I had a quick arm, and we used to just try and throw it as hard as we could, but have that accuracy. We always believed there was a box about the size of playing cards. And I wanted to land it in that all the time, and if not, I just wanted to hit the pins. There was no, I'll just throw it up there so you can take the run out. Actually, the glory's me, because I'm going to hit the pins. I know, it sounds selfish, but it was all, I always believed, and I know people will bag me on it, but indoor cricket was a game of individuals that needed to do their job 100%. And if they all did it, you won the game. If one person did it, there could be some issues.
Right.
So, yes, it is a team sport, they say, but I still have to field the ball, and I still have to run someone out, and then I have to bowl, and I have to field. No one's going to field for me. So I always, in all my sport, I took it as that. If I individually did my job,
we'll win.
So, as you got more understanding of the game as it is now, as you see now, you block areas that you don't want them to hit to. So at that stage when we were playing, when the ball was bowled, you hit the ball on its merit. There was no, we'll wait for a down and up. That never came into play.
We're almost down up half volleys at the moment. Yeah. And it's a mindset that you sort of need to try and change. It should be banged. Should be banging it.
Yeah, you should. You should smash that. But it's not the way it's played. The mindset is, I'm safe in that top 2 inches of the net where no one can reach me. But bowlers are now bowling to lines where players are now shutting those areas off. So it's, being able to watch some of those and watch some of the changes in the game have been pretty awesome. I know we see a lot of 2-on-leg. I don't think I ever played a game with 2-on-leg.
Interesting, eh?
I always had a theory, and when Keith started playing on the line, that if it was going through me, you were going to get run out by Keith. We always had that understanding. And I would cover the front 2/3 of the court. But, the game changes. The batters change, bowlers change, they get quicker. So there's...
I've got a lot of stuff going through my head as you're talking, because you're quite right. The game has changed. I wonder whether because of that ball change to the Burley, that has evolved the game plan of having 2-on-leg side at times, and it's because, and I talk about this ad nauseum a little bit, so apologies, but guys with a harder ball had to be better at bowling to get away and be a good bowler. With a softer ball, with all due respect to all the cricketers, we can't, not everyone can be amazing bowlers, but the guys who weren't that good would be able to do cutters and slow it out, roll their fingers or whatever, aim at top of leg stump, and then all of a sudden you're creating batters to hit into the leg side. And if you're creating dot pressure with 2 on the legs, like at the end of the day, the way I bowl, I go 2 on legs. And if I'm downed up over cover, my cover's nearly point now. Yeah. So if I'm down up over cover, that's on me. That's my fault. I'm bowling in the wrong areas. So I don't need a fielder there because I shouldn't be going there. So I think maybe the change of the ball has motivated that.
Oh, definitely. When the ball change came in.
Did you play with the Burley much?
Yeah, hated it. Hated it. And always bowled in the first 6 overs while there was still some shine.
Yeah, and it was harder.
But then I ended up coming off a 3-metre run-up because I would swing the ball and I would start around the wicket and try and hit leg pin.
I remember when you first started. Not when you first started, when I first saw you, this big massive toe drag. You'd almost come in from the corner, big massive toe drag on the pitch. But you always bowled early.
Yes.
Could swing the ball both ways, and that was pretty much. You might have a little cutter, but you were trying to swing the ball most.
I don't think I ever had a cutter.
I didn't mean to have a cutter.
No, but that's true. If it did, it was just like, geez, that's hit something on the pitch.
But you were a really good bowler. I mean, we played together in outdoor for ages, and you're a very successful outdoor bowler at Premier level. So you did a really good job, and you knew how to bowl. I mean, you were accurate as well, and that's a massive, massive start.
And I think some bowlers, yes, with outdoor and a little bit with indoor, get a bit of pace and believe they're fast. But I've never ever believed it was about the speed always. If you couldn't control that ball, if you couldn't bowl it in the areas, then you were just an average bowler like everybody else. Even when I batted, that was the biggest thing. If you bowled in the wrong areas, I was going to punish you one way or another. And back then I was going to hit you to the back net.
I think you have just hit the absolute nail on the head with successful bowling. That it actually doesn't really matter what you do with the ball and where you go, or how fast you are. Yeah. It's about where you go with it. So Kirby and I spoke about this, and the reason why I had a bit of success, when I was going, is because we worked really damn hard in '98 and 2002 with our targeting.
Yep.
So that when I rocked up to the top of the crease in a test match, the ability for me to understand and be 100% sure exactly where this is going, which is 90% of the battle. I knew exactly where this ball was going. Off cutter, away swinger, in swinger, I knew exactly where this was going. Yep. And if I was just off, it was only just off. I was still within my window. So that made me a really, really hard bowler to face, right?
Also had pace, Colsey.
Yeah, but if I bowled into the wrong areas, and Kirby and I discussed this, is that it doesn't matter what you can do with the ball. It's where you go with it. It's a window you bowl. And if you bowl in the good areas, you're going to be the toughest.
I think, and you never bowled to me much, even though
there's a reason for that.
Even though I wished you would.
Sure you
I
did.
remember playing a game against that and just winding Stu Jensen up. And that game was, we played at Planet, and that was the old versus the young. You were playing for Harbour and we were playing for Planet. And we had me, Keith, Dooley, Jinko, Robbie Hyman, Booker and Smithy opened and got -10 opening. And I remember batting with Dooley second, and I said, mate, we won't run this. It's all right. I got this. And it was Nigel Collins at the top of his arm. And he was slippery.
Yeah.
He was slippery.
Yeah, Nigel's a good bowler, man.
I was talking to Stewie about this today, and I said, no, it's all right. I'm just going to have a look at him, Dooley. And he bowled the ball, and I smashed him square up into the net, down the inside. I got caught.
Up, down.
I got caught.
Oh,
Dooley walks down and goes, what the F did you do that for? I said, I just wanted to prove to him he's not that fast.
all right.
But it was just like, even in the latter stages of my career, I still wanted to prove a point. I think we walked away with 35, but it was the era that I just went, wow, these guys are, it's a changing of the guard.
Yeah, and the game had, the way it was developing and changing, the ball change, the skill set as well. We were learning how to down up the way the Australians did it. Fielding was changing a little. The dynamics of fielding was changing, but I also think that the strategy of setting games up was changing as well.
You know, and we were talking about it, and I said to Stu, but I just wound Colsey up on the line. I said, you're not good enough to bowl to me, Colsey. And I know you wanted to bowl to me. And she was like, no. I'm not going to let Noakes get the upper hand. But it was, you just saw a difference in the game of the way we played it to the way you played it. And that was, from my perspective, crap to see. But from overall for the game, it's like, things are changing. There's a changing of the guards. Obviously, we had Valley coming through at the time. And you watch them play or field, and you got tired watching them because they were so energetic.
Valley to me,
exciting.
Wellington and Valley, they just always seemed to be around and there. They just didn't have a huge player base, but they were always good. And then all of a sudden, next season, they've got this other great outdoor cricketer that's come in and he bats the house down. You're like, man, where do you guys just keep drumming these guys up from, you know?
I remember.
There's no development, no young guys coming.
Well, it
was
didn't
just
seem like it. There must have been somewhere.
Yeah.
Like Rog Kinsella. I remember watching him bat. And it was the guy, you know, he was solid. And he hit stuff through the three all the time. And he hit stuff fours and very rarely he hit sevens, but everything he hit was the middle of his bat. And no, there weren't too many people that I didn't like playing leg side against. He was one of them because he hit it so cleanly through leg.
Right.
You know, so even at the top of my game, it was just like, wow, this guy's.
It was just like a snap off the bat.
You could hear the sound. It was like a gun, and it was just like, oh, hope Keith's got that.
Greg Hoff was one of the cleanest guys I got to bat with him as well. And it wasn't a great period of my career playing around that particular team. I mean, it wasn't, but in half my game it was amazing because, you know, everyone rated me as a bowler and it was great. And the other half is I got to bat with Greg Hoff, which was amazing. He took me under his wing, but really the whole environment was actually quite hostile towards that because I couldn't bat. I was useless. But that never seemed to really get looked after too much. But I got to bat with Greg, and Greg couldn't bowl. He was an okay fielder, but he could bat.
Yeah.
And he was one of the few guys with Robbie Kerr that was actually like down-upping it in games, but we weren't recognising why that was so effective in a way, you know, because we weren't trying to emulate that.
It was almost a cop-out.
Almost.
Really? You're down
what are you doing? What are you
doing?
tap stuff up into the top springs, mate? What's going on there?
And you trotted through like you were prancing your stuff down the pitch.
Next thing, they've got 40 run partnership, and you're like, oh, okay.
That era was... It was one of those eras where I guess I was top of my game and saw... You were able to see something like that, and you were able to see that players who couldn't bat or couldn't bowl or couldn't field. But obviously there was something there that the team saw in you that was, And I think that was a bonus because we didn't bring many colts up.
Mm.
There were not many colts that we brought up, and I think that's a bonus for you, Colsey, even though there are times where I wouldn't play if you were playing.
I know you were going to bring. I was going to bring this up if you didn't
So I'll
bring
just
this up.
jump it in there.
This is my story.
Is your podcast?
You bastard.
Yeah, well, look, that's not the...
You didn't rate me. You didn't think I was good enough.
No.
So you wouldn't play on a court with me.
No, and you missed out on a tournament because
I did.
I said I wouldn't go if you went. Why I didn't rate you, Colsey? God, stuffed if I know. I was too cocky.
We love each other now, man.
Yeah,
It
bro.
doesn't matter, man.
Bro, I to this day, that it was one of those things that it was just like me or him, and unfortunately in that instance you lost. I think maybe for the clock 10 years, if you went me or him, I think I would have lost, or slipped into coach.
Yeah, maybe.
Those who can't coach.
Maybe.
Oh, it's one of those things that, and we're talking about that era, and I think that's something that even listening to the podcast that I've never heard or heard a lot of, was, the Antoinette Spains,
Yeah.
the Maya Lewis's.
Yeah, it doesn't get lost on me, mate.
All
Doesn't
those
get lost on
players
me.
there. I had the luxury to go away on a tour with those players and to see some of them just...
That's so good. I've got a story about Antoinette Spain because she was playing indoor cricket around you guys, and she was playing men's cricket as well. She played men's in-house cricket, and she was such a special player. And I remember playing. I would have been 15 playing under 16 cricket, and we had a game scheduled against Auckland Women's at Melville Park, and Antoinette was playing for them, and she ripped us up. Big massive in swingers and a straight one, and just absolutely ripped us up. And she's just she's an incredible lady, but she was a superstar of women's indoor cricket early on, man. She was just special, and just an amazing lady as well, man.
I had the luxury of coaching
Right.
that side.
Awesome.
And it was hard because there were so many quality players around at the time, and certain teams were dominating. And it's just the way it was, and you can always look back and go, God, if I only had taken that person, if I hadn't taken this person, it's history now. But you looked at the likes of Maya Lewis, Lossie Harford, Keith and I were chatting about it the other day, and we said that we were playing in the men's competition. Lossie was batting, and one of the boys, I'm going to bounce her. And Keith just said, get it right. Now it's just going to the back net. This is a girl. Actually, no. She was a machine when it came to hitting on the up. And I'd personally never been able to do it. I'd be scooping she'd hit on the up straight to the back, and it was just, she had a big smile, run through, and the guy was like, just try and get line and length, shall I?
It might be a good idea.
But to have that era, and the men's era wouldn't have been as good without the women's era. To have some of those players that you're able to, Katrina Withers, she's married now.
Yep.
But to have someone like that as well, and then just to see them playing for Canterbury, to see the likes of Chris Harris playing for Canterbury, play against Chris Cairns, play against Lee Jamon, all those players, Dooley, it's wonderful to see that now outdoor cricket's accepting indoor to a point. Tony Sale, who was the Auckland coach at the time, I went up to Tony and I said, Tony, you guys bag indoor, but these guys can hit a ball off the block from ball one. What's the big deal? Why do you hate it so much? And they did. Chris Harris, I believe, he wasn't allowed to play indoor because outdoor said no.
I believe because, funnily enough, Martin Guptill used to play indoor cricket and Jimmy Neesham, and that was still written in their. This is not from the horse's mouth, but my understanding is that the contracts for New Zealand and outdoor cricket up to that point had stipulations that you couldn't play other sports. And of course that would, can't go skiing and all that stuff, which makes sense.
But if you look at touch and rugby, that's a feeder. And it's a feeder for league. So Tony Sales said, "Noakes, can't hit the ball straight. You cannot hit the ball straight in indoor."
All the best batters play straight in cricket.
Very much so. And then Max came along. And you just smash it anywhere and everywhere. You know, so you look at those and you go, okay, cool. You do understand that at the time. And no, you don't. You just see this block. You know, I remember Lou Vincent coming down to a cricket training at Planet. Man, he was down upping a 3 every ball, didn't matter what it was. And then every now and again he'd smash to the back net. You know, so these guys are classy that are playing outdoor. You know, there's some amazing skill. And, you know, Dooley's not going to like this, but yes, and he scored a first-class century, I know that. But we always thought he was average in outdoor, and we always said to him when he played for us, "You're so average in outdoor, but you're amazing in indoor." And, yeah, I guess trying to put that together, how does that work when, you know, why can't you open an outdoor, but you can in indoor? So... You know, and maybe didn't get the opportunity. And I believe, I don't know, don't quote me on it, Dolly, but when he scored his century, I believe he may have opened.
Right.
But
we can't fact check that. I need to get on Google and fact check it.
No, I'll fact check it after. So I'll message him overseas. But yeah, it's like I said. You know, some of the quality players that came through. It was for me. Andre Adams had the privilege of coaching a Colts side, and he was part of it. And as much as you guys hated being up at 8 o'clock in the morning, you turned up, you let me drill you like a drill sergeant, and you walked away. And you guys were something special. You could see coming through. You know, Andre probably wasn't the true Andre until a bit later, when all of a sudden everything clicked for him.
Something happened there, eh? He had so much talent, and he had that West Indian vibe about him, but yeah, he found a way, eh? And mate, I don't know if I want to talk to him about it. I haven't spoken to him for a long time, but it seemed like the '98 World Cup, and he got injured. He got injured in one of the first games of the tournament, and so missed out the rest of his first World Cup. Right, pretty devastating. You'd never know about it because his attitude towards the rest of the team during that whole tournament was like, "What can I do for you?"
He's a true athlete.
What can I do for you guys? You know, and smile on his face, rocking around like, yeah, well, I'm just here for you boys, mate. At the end of the day, you know, what a man. And then it just 3 years later, he's bowling one days against Australia and taking fifers.
Yeah.
Something clicked in him, I think, around that period because he started bowling really well for Auckland. He got an opportunity with Auckland, started bowling really well. And look, at the end of the day, he just bowled a really heavy ball, slightly had a good little away a little bit. It slid through quicker than you thought it was going to be. He was always a yard quicker than you thought.
Yes.
And he had the ability to just go straight bang at the stumps and got a lot of guys in front. So he took a lot of wickets. And he's now the second leading first-class wicket taker of all time for New Zealand, behind Sir Richard Hadley. So his record is unbelievable.
And no one would, I think if you had to ask that question, no one would go, "Oh, Andre Adams." Would they? He just snuck through, and he was pretty unassuming. You know, I know when he threw the willow round in indoor, you don't want to be standing in the front half.
or catching his back flick at offside line.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, you had these quality players that came through that you do see in that outdoor stadium now. You know, they are out there. But it's, you know, it's I guess they all have the same formula at the start. I think everyone has that same formula. It's just to what extent they take it. Mine was probably quite extreme. I remember sitting in a test series and we're playing, Kirby was the captain, and he went round the...
89? Would this been 89? What are you talking about? When?
Was it 89? It was at Royal Oak.
Oh, 92.
And he went round and he said, I want to know, what you guys are here, why you're playing. And I said, for the gear. For me, at the time, it was free kit. But, later on when I played Masters, and even for the Auckland Masters, had the opportunity to captain the side, I wasn't a captain's ass. I was not a follower. I led in my own way.
Yeah, that's right.
The captain could go, this is what I
You were led by being the best player in the
I
court.
need you to turn the game somehow. That was me. You just prod the beer and away we go. But to actually captain the team, I don't know what to say. Come on, guys. Hurry up. Do your job. I was probably more negative than I was positive as a captain. So it was nice. Obviously, Stewie captained the side in 95. We went to the World Cup for the Masters.
Yep.
Funny.
Oh, Masters in 95?
2005.
2005.
In South Africa. And the funniest thing is, Stu was captain. I was vice captain.
That is funny already.
Yep. Oh, tell me about it. At the
You had a born leader and not so born leader.
Yep. And at the Nationals for Auckland, Keith was captain and I was vice captain. And it was just like, okay. So we had to pick a team. So the coach, right, go and you two sit down, nut out a team. So I would come into the room and Keith and Stu would pick a team. And I'd just sit there twiddling my thumbs in the corner and say, right, you guys decided what you're going to play? Yep. Go back and say, right, this is what we've come up with. And every game. I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, right.
I was there to play the game. And I didn't, it didn't bother me that I didn't captain the side. I couldn't. I was there to play the game and my focus was on me, not on the team. So that's where I know I wasn't a great captain. I was just a player, but did my job to the best that I could have done. It's
funny, the old leadership thing, because you always, and when you're one of the better players in a team, coming through the ranks, and that you sort of feel like, captaincy's sort of like the pinnacle, it's sort of like the thing you want to become, and you sort of want to do it, and now, like, I couldn't think of anything worse, really. I'm a reluctant captain when I have to be of Harbour, and it's usually because there aren't really too many other options, and it's just not. I want to lead. I want to lead by being a really good player and just doing my job. And then I know that one of my skill sets is, the captain leads, and if something else needs to be said, I'm always a pretty good secondary sort of information giver or message sender or whatever, and I don't try to overcomplicate that. I don't always get it right, but that's where I know I can contribute. And if it means trying to pull the best out of other people and identify something, then hey, great,
I'm 1-0 as a captain for New Zealand. But when we went into the huddles, Keith did all the talking. And I just stood there.
That's about as funny as me saying I've kept for my country.
And I tossed the coin. So that's all I did. Just like, boys, 1-0. And I'll walk away with that forever in a day.
Funny.
And know that Keith called the shots, and that's how it was done then.
Yeah. There's one thing I want to say just before we move on to something else, and the pathway of indoor cricket through to outdoor cricket is absolutely true and real.
Yes.
What I've sort of noticed recently, where I've been involved a little bit more in junior stuff, is where I've seen outdoor coached cricketers, young girls and boys coming into the game, being really successful at indoor and loving it, and then going back into an outdoor season and being that far step ahead of their peers, and it's because they've played a season of indoor cricket. And it is hopefully the modus operandi of coaches of junior players in indoor cricket now, that you're not changing that outdoor technique.
Yeah.
What you're asking them to do is just play the ball a little bit later and play straight. And if you do that, then you take it into the outdoor game and you are that much more effective.
And I think as the game's changed, an outdoor batter that plays in the V is much more effective than when they played in the V against us. They just got edges all the time.
Yeah, right.
So the game has evolved that V player that plays underneath the eye line, that drops it down, it's so much easier for them now because that's where the game's played.
But then you go into an outdoor game that next season and the ball's moving half a foot as opposed to a foot and a half.
exactly.
And indoor, you're used to it.
Yeah,
like a half foot movement in outdoor group means nothing. Or whatever.
You know, it's. I guess the danger was when I went from indoor to outdoor. I guess I started playing across the line because they're not moving that far.
Yeah, right. So you just want to boom.
Yeah, so you picked it up because and you went after the first ball. So that was always the danger with outdoor indoor, depending on whether you batted before Christmas or after Christmas when it did nothing.
The green decks or brown decks.
We down in Molyneux Park, I was with my son and he was at rugby training, and they said, "Oh, we can't play on number one because they're prepping the decks for cricket." And I said, "Oh, wouldn't be too many batters that want to play on that now."
Exactly.
And that's true. It's just so green before, and you just so look. That's where it's more effective for an outdoor player. I believe that V is now very important.
Oh, it's super important. Yeah. And you see it straight away now where guys who are getting caught out by playing across the line or aiming to down up over points head instead of aiming to down up over three lines leg, and the result might be you're down up and over point, but your intent is actually you're playing straighter.
Yes.
That's really important.
You look at it now, whereas we used to hit through ahead of our legs, they take a step back and it's just like, okay, that's just lent itself into where I would play it in outdoor.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's really, really
so
simple.
my point being is that I think that for junior cricket especially, and Kirby's got a proven point where, 2 years ago, I think it was, 9 of the 11 Blaze players were all through indoor cricket pathway.
Yep.
So for women, it's especially there, but for boys, I think it's an absolute great transition where I'd really encourage kids who are in outdoor cricket, got nothing to do in the winter, love cricket, give indoor a go, right? Because it's just going to help their game so much more. The next point where I wanted to go next, I don't want to, I've got a great opportunity, obviously, or we've got a great opportunity to be able to talk about past players and the environment. And I want to talk specifically about players. I want us to pull out players because, for me, I've already spoken about Simon Orr. I never got to watch Gavin and Lincoln. I never got to see them play. I've heard a lot of stories about them and the ability of them is not lost on me. But so like Simon Spike was a guy I got to play with. He was my captain for Auckland, my first Auckland trip. He was my roommate, which was pretty amazing. I got kicked out of a room for a reason I won't go into right now.
We've got something in common.
Yeah. So he is one of the reasons why I decided, hey, I want to swing the ball away and I want to swing the ball and I want to do it at pace and I want to be quicker than anyone else. I was never going to be 6'2" the way he was, and so I was going to be a different type of bowler. But I wanted his number. I wanted number 5. I wanted to be bowling 5 and 9 or 13. I wanted his position in an indoor team, and he was a great motivation for me, as well as Chris Pringle was, who was just an amazing indoor cricketer ahead of his time for mine, and it's no secret that I modelled my action on Danny Morrison. You couldn't think of 3 better New Zealand bowlers around, I don't think,
and had the opportunity to face them all outdoor.
Yeah, that's right,
it's even though you've moulded yourself on this person but created the style from this person and added the extras from that person, you're still your own entity. And I think the difference, you can say, yep, you swung it like Dooley, but you had more pace than Dooley. The nerve-wracking thing is if you slid a ball in and you didn't see it, it was hitting your pins. If you slid a ball away and you didn't reach it, someone was getting run out. If you bowled an off-cutter, there's a high possibility it's going to hit the top of the bat. So, look, I think it's nice to have those players that you take a bit from there, take a bit from there. And, I think in the past, a lot of players have done that. They've seen a player and gone, cool, Lincoln Doyle, first person ever that I saw slap left and right-handed.
Wow.
And it was just like, I stood there in awe, just watched this guy go bang. And it was hit hard, and he just slapped it straight back left-handed. Gav picked it up, took the stumps off, took the bars off, then he slapped it right-handed. And it was just like, okay, I've got to get that. I've got to steal me some of that. I don't think it ever happened. I think if it ever went to my left side, it was going to the top, you know. And I always used to break down the areas I was in when I played. Even when I batted, there were 4 parts. There was the line where you knew it was short, and then I had 4 areas from there up, and then I had a line down the middle where I was standing, so I had 4 boxes on that side and 4 boxes on that side, and if they were in there, that was going to be played. So I split the middle of the batting area down so that I could create what I wanted.
Right.
Regardless of whether it was an outswinger, if it landed in that spot, it could still go where I needed it to go. Same as when I was a fielder, if the ball was here, it had to go there. When the ball was here, it had to go there. It was, I never overthought anything. In my mind, I stood in a chessboard, in a bunch of checkered squares. That if that's where it landed, and if that's where my hand was, that's where the ball was going. And I don't know why I looked at the game like that, or why I looked at it when I was batting or fielding.
It's like spatial awareness almost.
And it was just like I knew, I wasn't going to say, oh, there's a mark just there, but in that square, that's what was going to happen.
Did you have an awareness of what, like, without even really thinking or talking about it, subconsciously you knew what the batter was going to do, you knew where the bowler was going to go? I mean, Mallette's bowling or Phil Hole's bowling, Phil Hollings is bowling, you know what's coming?
That's where the difference in the game is now. I think we bowled to beat the batter. We never bowled to bring the field in.
Yeah, that's the ball change again, though.
Yeah. Phil Hole, you knew he'd bowl the ball and it'd turn and someone would try and hit it. I changed later on that I walked in with the bowler. Obviously, my reflexes were a lot slower than what they were. So I could walk in and then see where the ball's being bowled as to where I would end up.
So you were stationary early on?
Oh, very.
Right. Would you look back now and go, hey, I probably should have stayed doing that? Wow.
No.
Interesting.
No, it was, at the time the game was played like that.
But if you find that you're moving in towards the batting crease, like at leg side towards the batting crease line, you're shutting yourself off from the left side because you're moving away from that, so your momentum's going towards your right-hand side all the time?
Yeah, oh look, I look back at my game that I played, and some of the outs that I took, I don't know whether I've seen them now. I know when we played against Takapuna, they smashed the ball through high on my right-hand side, and I turned around to my left and caught it. So the speed of my turn, and so I caught the ball leaning the other way. And I've played a game where it's been cut into the corner and I've caught it behind my back. That's a one-off, never ever done it again. But my awareness of, and I think speed was the big thing. And you look at some of those leg side fielders that when we were at the World Cup, there was and I don't know who he was. He played in the Colts, and for me, I just said to the boys, here's the new leg side for New Zealand. Not sure if he even made it in 2005, but you just saw the speed of this kid. And that's where it was. It was never about, I believe that I was here and everywhere in front of me I could get to. I knew that if you cut the ball 10 centimetres off the ground, I would have a good opportunity to get the ball off. At that time, I was quite quick. So I knew I could dive and get the ball before it hit the ground. But obviously as age and gravity set in, it was not that simple, so you had to walk with it. And I knew that Keith and I always had an understanding that he would want me to walk this line. So if they drove it through...
Yeah, Keith was there to grab it.
So as we moved in unison, I guess, where they thought I was going to be, Keith was. So you also still had that coverage there. And for Masters, that was relatively simple. Obviously, A grade, different game. But like I said, the ball changed. The bowlers bowled the ball, and you fielded. That was the game, and you made sure that you got every out that was physically possible. You didn't.
Yep. I want to talk to me through 89.
Yep.
89 Test Series. Thanks, mate. Cheers. So, talk me through your experience through 89, because obviously a pretty amazing side, and then went on to what Kirby said, was probably the first series where the Australian side and the New Zealand side actually probably was pretty even. Like, had a real ability to win, and spoiler alert, you actually did win that series the first time here, right? So
it is.
Canterbury?
It is. And I guess you had a team that totally believed they were going to win it.
What sparked that? What sparked that off? Because it's not easy going, the anticipation of going against an Australian Test side where you see the list of players and you know who you're going to be up against, but the belief was, well, yeah, that's fine. We know how good we are.
Oh, look, I think everyone had played against Australia in one way or another. I'd played with some of the guys at New Steel, and then you came across and you played in the era where you played 14 games in an indoor tournament, and they were 8 ball overs, and it's not that I thought it was harder. It's just I think the environment was created harder. I think, I believed every time that I went on that field, I was the best player there, including in my own team. And I believe Dooley thought the same. I believe Harry thought the same.
Yep.
I believe every player that played, I think Phil Hull played at point, then he got injured. I think...
in 89, Phil
Was
Hull
it
played?
89?
No, 92, I think Phil played. I thought that was his first Test series with Nigel Butler.
No.
I got that wrong.
Phil played point for us.
Okay.
I think, I know Kirby's played with some phenomenal players, but Kirby had the luxury of having the side with such a belief
He'd be the first person to say that.
that it was just like, Australia who? And there was there's some quality players out there, but it was, it was so awesome to be able to I got to open with Dooley. I got to bat with Dooley, and as much as I don't like saying it, he probably carried me a little bit.
He's a good bat, man.
Yeah,
He's a
and it was
good
nice to know when he hit the ball, it was staying hit.
But how good to bat with a guy at the other end of the court who you might have felt like, this guy's got the same attitude as me, if not like more arrogant,
Yeah,
or
and
almost more confident.
If I was dipping,
Just pull each other back up,
mate,
right?
he would just give me a serve like you wouldn't believe. No, Harry always seemed like he was a bit of a clown.
Nah, not
No.
inside.
No,
Yeah.
Ben was the same.
Ben was
always
exactly the
thought,
same.
yeah, God, this guy's just chilling. No, internally, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone bleed as much as Ben did every time he dived. He just tore skin after skin, and that didn't matter. He was never going to lie down and go, it hurts. He was just going to continue through it. And we had, it was hard for Australia to try and beat us. And we was, mate, Bollarama was pretty amazing to play in. Felt like there were about 70,000 people there. But to have the support of I never ever, I know it's hard to say that, but I never ever wanted to play another series anywhere but Canterbury. Never liked playing against Canterbury, always wanted to beat them, but just the support was just insane. you know, and your own teammates, you know, you were never allowed to, you know, you did training. I think I had diarrhea in one of the trainings, and I was allowed a bit of time out to go off the court, and then I'd get my butt straight back on and train, because that's the way it was. And
Who's the coach? Who's the coach back then?
Guards?
I was going to say guards.
Gary Gardner?
Yeah.
And, you know, he was 100% behind all the boys. And you know, if everyone that knows Guards, he's a bit of a character, but he didn't take any crap either. But it was just a matter of the guys had, I guess, remember when we talked about at the start, my mentality of I'm the best and no one's better at the time. I'll do my job, you do yours. And we almost, you know, we were quite critical if someone let us down. But they knew
Honesty.
it. Yeah, but they knew it, and it was honest. But it wasn't. You're crap. You're not going to play. It was just like.
Yeah, that's what we saw, mate, and it just don't happen again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone knew that, and I think if you missed a run out, you know, I think Dawley ran someone out left-handed in that test. I think I hit one of the players. They hit square, and I hit side on to the pins, and. You know, I think everyone in that era was top of the game. And, you know, I think there was a distinct 8, and then there was the reserves. And I know that's a crap thing to say, but you wanted to be in that 8. There was no, I'm quite, you know, Dawley's better than I am. And everyone wanted to be on that field. Everyone believed they were better than someone else, but not in a bad way. You know, I never ever wanted to give up legside to anyone, and I think that's where it was. I think Kirby was one of the better captains that I've played under, if not the best. He was pretty resilient as a captain. He was pretty exciting, and you know, we're pretty lucky. We're pretty lucky to have something like that, and still be in the game. And still impart his knowledge. Yeah, and it sounds like Kirby's going to get back involved, which is pretty special, because you know, you don't want to lose guys like that to the game at all, man. Like, he's just too important. You know, obviously he's taken some time out to spend time with the girls and watch them grow. That's amazing, they are.
Just very, very special. Yeah, and it's just great to see him back in, because he's such a loved guy.
Yep.
And he's, you know, I've said this a couple of times, but he's got values and things about being a man that you wish you had. Oh. You know?
No, he's respected in all facets, whether it's just as a human being. Yeah. And he commands that presence.
Yeah, he does.
Without, you know, there are people that believe that happens. When Kirby walks in the room, people gravitate to him. There is no doubting that. Hell, I'm one of them. You know, it's just like...
Yeah, he's just so positive. He's so good to be around.
And you can't rattle him. You try. You know, we were talking just recently, we caught up just recently, and we talked about getting some of the retirees back into the game. And having like the old rules. Don't have to run to school.
No, because what would happen?
My hand up, sort of saying, I'm in.
No, because what'll happen is we'll get Heath Davis to bowl 8 balls at Keith while Watto's at the other end giving him a load of shit, not having to face him.
Yeah, but Keith will probably run a single if the person. You know, it's. I remember playing against Prings, against Kenzie, and. My batting partner was Chris Pringle in this game, and I smashed Kenzie to the back net, and then said, "Stay, buddy.
Good luck.
Claim to fame. I'll just take it, and then I'll hang out." But I didn't just hang out at the line. I walked all the way to the back net, and you always did that. And it was just like, and then Prings got peppered. The rest of the game was just like, yeah.
How quick was Chris Pringle? Chris Cairns in indoor. How quick with bowler was he? Because everyone I've spoken to over the years has said that he's one of the quickest that's played the game.
God.
Who's the quickest you've faced in indoor?
Cumberpatch.
Right. Yeah, he was slippery. He
I
was
lifted
very
my bat and it hit my leg pin.
Yeah.
Look, at the time I was at the top of my game, so I didn't think anyone was fast.
Even though Chris Cairns was coming in, yeah.
I believe so. And could I remember that? Yeah, I could remember it, but I don't sit there and go, yeah, he was so rapid that I didn't want to face him. I struggled with Stu Jensen.
Yep.
Because he bowled lines that I hated. I struggled with Mallet.
Yep.
Because he bowled a leg cutter that always got me stumped.
And just a bit quicker than what you think, man.
Yeah.
Just a bit quicker than what his action says it's going to come at you at, like Andre.
Yep, I struggled with Robbie Bird.
Oh, wow.
He wasn't quick,
No.
but he got the ball to talk.
So we go back to that, what makes a bowler really good is it's the areas they bowl. Like Robbie bowled great areas early on, swung it both ways nicely, wasn't quick, but just bowled really good, challenging areas. Asked a lot of questions of you, right?
Yeah, and and like you said, it wasn't fast, but he bowled in a line that was just like, I'm going to have to really sort this out. So yeah, I don't think I came across bowlers that I thought were rapid. Even when I told you earlier on of the story of Nige. And I know Nige is quick.
He was quick and he got a bounce because of his height. He just he just got steepled bounce that makes it tough.
I never found him rapid. And here's a story, and Chiz won't like this. We were playing against Valley, and as you normally do before tournament, you go out and have a few drinks, stay out a bit later than you should do before the tournament starts. And he was coaching Valley. And he said to me, Noakes, I bet you can't hit Obba for 7. I said, I bet you I can. And I was opening. Nah. I said, what's the deal? And I was drinking Southern Comfort at the time, and I think he was drinking Jim Beam or bourbon. He said, no, 2 bourbons. I said, mean. So we went into the game. I think we hit Obba for 12. And he comes up to me after the game and he said, you were never going to hit him for a 7, were you? No. And he was never going to throw it up, was he?
Yeah, right. No, it's even shorter at you.
So, win-win
two.
for me.
Yeah.
Here's your 2 bourbons. Yeah. Off you go.
Obba was slippery, man. Obba was slippery.
But it's
he really was.
I never faced you a lot. And Ringo?
Yeah, Ringo was quick.
Because I don't like left-handers.
Yeah, Ringo was quick. Yeah.
And he had a heavy ball.
Yeah. But
there wasn't... At the time when I played the game, I don't think anyone would hurry me up. We were talking earlier on where I got hit in the head by Darren Foy from England. Very first ball of the test. Don't even know where it came from. He wasn't even rapid. And yeah, the people that took the piss out of me were my own team. And it was just like, wow. So it's, I think when people bowl certain balls, you remember, but they're not because they're rapid. It's because I struggled with Mal's leg cutter. I struggled with Robbie Bird's swing and bounce. I struggled with Stewie J's in-swingers. Digger was
I reckon Digger on his night was quicker.
He comes in with this little slingshot and it pops up around your chest.
But Boyd was either unbelievable quick at you, was probably going to get you out, or you'd take him for 10.
And it was a heavy ball.
Yeah, but he was either on his game or he just wasn't quite there. But when he was on, Jesus, man, you wouldn't want to face too many.
No, Dooley was quickish.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the swing stuff, Jude. It's not.
I got a funny story from Keith about keep into spike and Simon Dool. And he goes, because I was asking him early on, when I first sort of was playing around that sort of era.
Yep.
And I was just going, when you're keeping a spike, like, can you see which way it's coming out? You can pick his swing out of the action. He goes, nah. He goes, if it's a foot outside off stump, I know it's his in swinger. If it's on leg stump, I know it's his out swinger. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and so that just shows how much on instinct Keith, you know, kept.
Yes.
And just watched the ball and trusted himself and relied on it.
Yep.
I want to hit on a couple of names that we've used, and we've used nicknames. And for people who are watching, obviously, I want to talk names, right? So Ringo was a guy from Royal Oak. I didn't ever play against Ringo. I watched a lot of Ringo. He was left arm, almost the Simon Dool of Royal Oak, almost, you know, because he was left arm, bowled 5, bowled 9 or 13.
Yep.
Big left arm, away swingers.
Yep. And cut.
And
it was just like.
But he was almost off the wrong foot.
Yes.
Almost.
And it was
bowled,
to hit your hip.
Yeah.
Or your rib cage.
But he was good pace, man. Like,
and it just came up there, and it was just like, wow.
And he was in your face. He was arrogant fast bowler. You know, really, really good.
And by the time his follow through came in, he was almost standing on your toes.
Yeah, that's right.
But that was the era.
What was his name? What was his full name?
Oh, no idea.
Ringo. We'll just call him Ringo. Cheers, mate.
You're out there, bro.
You're out there, brother.
But it's that was the era then.
Yeah, and they called him Ringo because he had earrings, right? Yeah, a couple of earrings going on.
You got in someone's face.
Right.
You know, that was how you rattled them. You know, and you learnt to block that out very quick. Because if you didn't, you're playing someone else's game.
Yeah. And the other one was Mallet. Now, I'm actually a fan of Darren. So it's Darren Nicol. Mallet was everyone just knew him as Mallet. And I don't know where that nickname came from, but maybe another time. But he was cover fielder, one back. Pretty much was on what we'd call the circle now, like the exclusionary zone. And he'd just stand there. And if you look the wrong way, you end up shoulder in your chest and on the floor.
Blocks were a big part of the game.
Massive part. And whether he was fielding the ball or not, most times, I think he got maybe sent off a couple of times over his career, but he did it 1,000 times. So he got away with it like 99% of the time, pretty much.
We played Tacker. So it was Grand Slam. Grand Slam played Tacker in the final. We won. Halfway through the game, Mal stiff-armed Watto and sat him on his ass. Off. You're not allowed to play for Auckland. So he went to Wellington and they beat us. But someone bought him a dozen beers or 2 dozen beers or something for doing that.
Right.
And it was just like...
Everyone ganging up on Watto.
Oh, look, you know, Watto had the luxury... Well, Watto had the luxury that he would just wind anyone up. Yeah. You know, that boy had talent. Ugh. There's no doubting that. I've never seen someone run down and just bash everyone to the back net. You know, there was skill. And I think that's what grated people, that he made it look so simple. But obviously the game changed and he became a target, which was a lot harder in the sense of the game. But, you know, and that was like Boyd and Stu and Mal and, you know, I talking to Stu again about a team that we played for, and they had the legside brick wall, they called him. His name was John Pooker. And I wanted to emulate that, but I was about the size of his thigh when I first started playing indoor cricket. And this boy, mate, you couldn't get it past him because he was so big. Not as in wide. This guy was a unit.
Right.
He looked like Zeus from WWF, and they called him the legside brick wall.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they had Steve Hong, and then they had Gavin Roke, and all these guys that were playing, Paul and Mark, can't remember their last names, and the guy we called Sasquatch, and Stu and Boyd. You know, these guys were, you know, John McMahon was the coach. You know, some guy who didn't want to mess with.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. Yeah, I was around John McMahon a little bit.
It was a different era of coaching. It was a different era of playing. And, you know, you looked at all those and it moulded some of these players. I think it made them a lot more resilient, and that's a big word these days, is the resiliency of players.
You bring up something that Bots brought up, and it was more about the type of player that indoor used to attract back in that days, and it used to be like, and you may resonate with this yourself or not. It certainly resonated with me. People who are just searching for a bit of something they could just attach themselves to in their life, but younger,
family.
Something's not quite going right in other areas of their life, and so they're looking for something to just be a part of and know that, it's going to be really combative in that, but at the end of the day, you're going to have someone who's going to put their arm around you and just help you through it all. For me, it was Keith, your brother, and I'll be forever thankful for that he maybe reluctantly a little bit, but early on just went, hey, I'm just going to help this guy through and just get through all of that. And he was great because I formed a relationship with him away from indoor as well, which was really nice. And
and that's where of the two captains that I've played under, he was probably the other one. And if I had an idol in the game, it'd be Keith. And everyone would go, really? Yeah, it would be. I love the way he batted. I love the way he hit through the leg. Love the way he kept, and actually enjoyed the way he threw the ball. Sorry, bowled. But it was nice to have. I mean, and I know a lot of players have family that play. It was just, I was lucky to have a brother that played the New Zealand side with me, and we could always have that bond. That was probably bigger than the team sometimes. But he was the first one to pull me back into line. Which was
probably the only guy you'd listen to be honest.
Oh, look, at one stage, I didn't listen to anyone. I didn't listen to. I listened to, me, and parts of that was my downfall, not of the game, but just me in general. So it does attract those sorts of players that we need to feed off each other. And I know I listened to one of the podcasts and you're talking about the rah type of game that we played.
Yeah.
I don't believe I ever played a game like that. When I got someone out.
No, you weren't the rah-rah player, but there was a lot of that around you at the time. I stood there,
so you knew it was. And it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
But it was at training. I was probably like that. I was intense at training.
Right.
It was. I wanted to throw the ball hard. So if you're on back stumps, I don't care if you don't play back stumps. I'm still going to throw it hard.
Yeah, I expect you to catch it.
If you've got the gloves, and I slap the ball, I'm going to slap it as hard as I can.
Yes, so catch it.
Yep, that's your job. You've got two gloves.
And the best keepers around at the moment are the ones that field from the field. They take from the field, don't take from the bowler.
Yeah,
and it's probably like so. Jesse Ryder is keeping
Aussie
at the moment.
Yep,
and selected in the New Zealand side for the World Cup and. It's one of his. I mean, like the guy's a freak. Like, massive hands, amazing athleticism for a guy. With absolute due respect. His.
He's a unit.
Yeah, he's an absolute unit, and for all the good reasons. And got his game honed down, man. If he can just get himself through an injury with injuries and stuff, he'll be great.
I think we touched on that earlier on, Colsey. It was about putting yourself into a position that's right. So putting yourself in a position early. That you don't actually. I think people thought too hard about how they had to do something, yet it was only a foot movement.
Right.
That changed the whole landscape of where you are, how you receive the ball, how you release the ball. It was only a foot movement. It was only a hip swivel, which is not much in the whole scheme of the game or the aspect of the game. But if you look at that now, if you twisted your shoulders a little bit, you're already in alignment with. And I think when you get to a point where you're not as fast, moving as fast, or your reflexes aren't as good, those are the things that need to come to the surface, is where you are in relation to where the ball needs to be.
But maybe also that it's a particular type of person who needs to have a bit of
Keeper.
concentration in that area.
Yeah.
I don't know that Jesse talks to himself too much about that sort of stuff. I think he just sees ball, catch ball, and just relies on everything. And he's just that talented
Yeah.
that it just comes off.
I
You
went and
know,
watched the game, and he was batting. I'd never met the guy before. We were down at Hut. Was it a Hut? Over by the Wainui Hill. We're down there, and I was just going out to caught up with Finns and all the boys and Stu Potts and Nico, and got to watch him bat. Gosh, I wish I had some of his skill when I was batting. It just looks like he's got all the time in the world.
guys look slower when they're bowling to him.
Yeah,
They do.
just
Just look slower.
and it did. I watched the game and I went, "Are these guys actually going to bowl on the ball?" But he just stood there and just, they have all the time in the world, and those are the best batters. That they just look like everyone's rolling their arm over.
Yeah, he's a special cricketer, man. I'd love to do. There's a few guys on the list that I'd love to do this with. Obviously, there's the era of the it's better to say yesteryear. I don't mean that.
No,
just the building blocks of indoor cricket in New Zealand, player wise, and your Cam Ramels, your Antoinette Spains.
Yes.
I'd love to go up and do a session with them. It'd be so cool. Because I don't want to miss out on the women's game. I'm a big advocate for the women's game, and people who know me do know that. I haven't got a lot of people so far, a woman on podcasts just yet, but it is a focus for me. But being able to talk like to Jesse, to Gups, to Nisham, to Jimmy, to Ajaz Patel, guys who have played indoor, at a really, really high level, and then gone on because the outdoors taken over. Andre would be great if we ever managed to get together and do it. I don't really want to do it over a Zoom session, but hey, if I have to do it, I have to do it. That's just New Zealand players, let alone the Aussie guys and girls around that it'd be great to have a chat with and just get their take on it. Ross Gregory, I'd love to have a chat with you, mate. If you're listening to this, I'd absolutely love to have a chat with Ross
Steve
Gregory.
Smith was our era.
Right, yeah.
And it's just knowing what was going through their head. And I guess when New Zealand felt they were the equivalent of Australia, possibly it was for the same reason. And you had there were no negative thoughts about whether or not you're going to struggle against this bowler. I know later on in my career when I wasn't at the top. Well, I was at the top of my game for Masters, but when I wasn't there, I didn't want to go out and bat. And batting was me. It was just like, I'm worried about this bowler. You knew your game was in the decline. So that's why I think I bowed out at Masters. And people have said, what about over 50s and stuff like that. I bowed out at Masters, and I'm happy. I'm looking forward to heading down the centre on Saturday and just watching a couple of games to see the speed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it'll be good to see come down this Saturday for the finals of Super League. That'll be really cool because there'll be some really good players playing in the girls' competition, the women's competition, and the men's as well. So yeah, it'll be really cool to see it. The last area I wanted to talk to you about is the coaching side of things as well. So you took a bit of time out of the game, but then you came back and did a bit of coaching as well. Talk us through that.
So, came back and coached the ladies. There was an opportunity there.
What year was this?
God. So, Maya Lewis was our captain for the series in Wellington. And, I had the luxury that
Was that 02?
I think so. I think I had the luxury of having Keith as my assistant. Again, it was one of those things where I wasn't really the coach. Keith was.
But the dynamic worked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember going in there and this is the way I coached. I was able to show how it was supposed to be done. So bounce ball off leg, and this is what you do, and then you hit the pins. And then I remember sitting there watching them and going to Keith, why can't they do that? It's really simple. You just hit the ball and it hits the pins. You don't hit the ball and it hits the net, or you go, so, girls, this is what I want you to do. And Yeah, it was understanding, I guess, the dynamics of female cricket.
Yeah, they learn completely different
Yes.
from a guy, man. And I tell you what, it's less work.
Yeah.
The women are so much easier to coach, and that's
'cause they
so
listen.
much
It's,
better. They
I believe
listen.
it's the same as fly fishing.
Tell them once, and they get it. They absolutely get it.
You know, and I know Tash was at cover for us. And it was, Tash, this is what I want you to do. How come you're not doing that, Tash? But she was in her way, and it was, Keith was like, bro, this is what we need to do. Had Liz Moore, so we brought Liz Moore back.
Awesome.
She was our manager. You know, we had Tash, we had Ants, we had Maya, we had Lost till she did her Achilles, we had Cam till she did her jaw at one of the trainings.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the training, and ET smashed the ball at training and it broke Catherine Rammel's jaw. Everyone went, oh, who's going to tell Wayne? Keith goes, not me. Rings me, oh, bro. I said, what's that? Cam's broke her jaw. Oh, you know, you just lost Lossie.
Best
You
player,
just
best
lost
players,
Cam.
yeah.
And it was just like, they were quality players, but they were quality players that made up a pretty formidable side. So it was just like, okay, right, Maya, we need to. You know, we made the final. I think we got our ass served, but you know, we had Helen Watson, ET was playing, Liz,
Yeah,
from
Liz
War Luck
Moore.
was playing was keeping.
Yeah.
Jess
Lizzie Boyd, yep.
Yeah, it was Jess Ramage on the side.
Yeah, she was. I think she was,
You know, and so there were all these quality players. I mean, these girls at the time were I think, was Weedy I think Weedy might have been on the side as well. Kelly was on the side. You know, and there was some, you know, I have to, you know, as part of this, I have to say there were some quality players that missed out. And they'll sit here and go, oh, you didn't pick me and because you didn't like me because you were in Auckland. But reality was, I could only pick 12. And that's the 12 I picked. And I'm happy with the decision we made. Would players that didn't get picked change the outcome? No.
No, that Aussie side was pretty
You know,
good,
and it
mate.
was the same as the men's. The men's beat Australia midweek.
Yep, thanks to Corey Todd. Yep.
Toddy.
Oh, sorry, and the other
Bless you,
guys on the
Toddy.
court, but
Bless you,
Toddy was the man that day, that's for sure.
And then they taught New Zealand a lesson in the final. You know, I always, to this day, think that Aussie didn't play the game that they were going to play. They let people hit the ball that they won't let hit in the final. They created an environment where New Zealand picked their team because this is what happened. But you know, that's always been Australia. Strategically, Australia have been. You know, they don't pick a side because that's the best playing 8 at the time. They pick a side because that team's going to beat New Zealand.
Correct.
You know, you look at you also had some at the time. You had Lee, Birdie, I think Rob Orchard.
Yep. Rob and Mark open
Yep.
batting for us. Phenomenal.
You know, phenomenal captains. The only person at the time that knew how to win, I think, was Robbie Bird. He'd taken Wellington and they'd beaten Australia every single time they'd come to New Zealand. So you look at those things and you just go, okay, cool. And we built on that, you know, and I know that I've seen some of the series that have gone through that New Zealand's been damn close, you know, but again, Australia's made decisions and created an environment in games prior that New Zealand's gone, okay.
We'll go this direction.
Yep,
and Australia's already ahead of the game.
Yeah, Australia's formed. They've almost rolled out a mat for that's what I think. I mean, it might not be. I wasn't the coach for them. But they've rolled out a mat and said, hey, these players are worth being in the final.
Interesting take on it, man. Yeah,
And
like
they've
it.
gone, New Zealand's gone, oh, I'll take that. Instead of pulling back and going, right. And now we do. We look individually at the players and we go, yep, this is how we need to stop that player. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players can do that. This is how we stop that. And then we make the nucleus. I assume this is how we do it now. But then we make the nucleus of the team. so that's where I think we've faltered in the past, where we've taken the players that have won us games, performed exceptionally well. But if you look in the past finals, Australia's never played like that. And the girls did it to us. I think the only thing that I picked before we got out of that series is I said, ET, you'll be bowler of the tournament. If you get your lines right, and she was bowler of the tournament. But it's just, you look at those, you think, hey, that's cool. But an amazing girls I got to spend time with. And I made some wrong decisions. And that's, I guess, as a coach, if you have the opportunity, you learn not to make those decisions again. But as a player, you only get one chance, don't you?
You do, but it's interesting. It's an interesting take on the coaching thing because sometimes, and I said this to Matt Henderson the other day. Sometimes you got to lose one to win one.
Yes.
And for a coach to be unsuccessful in one campaign and not be around to be available to win the next campaign is really, it's quite important. And it's a really, like an indoor, look, you can't pick and choose. It's all volunteer, man. You have to pay to be a part of it. It's not
the wealthiest
easy.
people actually get to go sometimes.
Yeah, and some people are, hey, look, I'm around for this 4 years. I'll do my best. And hey, what happens in 8 years, God knows, man.
Exactly.
But, to be able to go from one campaign into the next campaign is really, really important, I think. And this is where I've changed my tune about the men's game a little bit, the men's team, from what's been selected. Because originally I was a little bit disappointed, it's a bit same. But actually now I'm looking at it going, actually, the guys, the nucleus of the New Zealand men's team that got selected a month or so ago for this World Cup in Melbourne is the nucleus of the guys who just missed out in Tauranga and Palmerston North in 18 and actually didn't do too much wrong. They just missed out. And those guys have lost that one and understand that, hey, this time round it's going to be a little bit different. It's the same coaching group. That's really important. And so the lessons have been learnt a little bit, and I think that's what could be a little bit scary for those Aussie guys.
Yeah, and it's that belief factor. We go back to what we talked about at the start. Is that belief, and you look at those guys that just missed out. Have they changed anything about their game, or have they just missed out and they're still playing the same game?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where, I come back to the fact that when an opposition rolls out a red carpet, and you go, okay, cool. Yeah,
I'll grab it.
I'll grab it. Yeah, be very wary of that.
Yeah.
I think that's only, I guess, years of this game have only made me a little bit wiser.
Mate, that's a great philosophy. It's the first time I've heard that, and it's a really, really good take on it. I think that the guys, the guys are going to have to play well against Australia. So there's no doubt about that. The Australians are going to be amazing. They're just going to be a really good side who do really clinical stuff because that's what they do.
But that's the thing. It's about being clinical with what you do. And I think you look at it, and at the end of the day, I watched one test series and we missed 5 outs. Simple outs. And you think if you had got those, the game's changed. If you had got 3 of them, the game's changed, but you missed 5. Australia don't.
No.
And they pick up one that you never thought they were going to get. So that's where the game has to change with when you say you've got to be clinical, whether you're batting, whether you're bowling, fielding. This is the lines that we have to bowl, and I think it's like outdoor. If you miss those lines by, let's say, a deck of cards, it's costly. So we have to be a lot more on top of our game, a lot more in tune with opposition, how we can beat them. And I think every team that needs to be picked on the merit of the opposition, not on the merit of who's playing well at the time, because it may not work for each game. So yeah, but again, it's changed so much. The landscape of the game's changed so much. So and when we did all retire, it was scary. It was scary to see the change of the game remember when we were playing Masters, we were sitting up, we were watching this team we were playing, and this one we were playing against you, and that just made us tired warming up. And they opened their bags and they had their bat and box and gloves and stuff like that, and we opened ours and we had nappies and bottles and deep heat and strapping. And it was just like, boys, this can't last that long.
Yeah. I often wonder, like, the style of game. If you took Harbour 8, the Harbour 8 players now, and I'm only saying Harbour because I've played with my guys, and I can reflect it back on the Harbour 8 that I would have played with when I first started playing men's. What would be the result? And it's an interesting one. I can't really. I wonder whether the team now would probably win by 20 or 30. I think, but only because they're just the ball. The ball's massive. 6 ball overs now. Which you guys weren't totally foreign. It wasn't totally foreign to you guys because in some tournaments you played 6 ball.
It changed just as the ball changed.
But I think it's probably 20 runs difference now. Yeah, but only because of the way the game is played now. That's not because of talent or ability.
I look at it and if I took that Harbour side, if I took that New Zealand side that I thought was quality, and you took the New Zealand side that you thought was quality, it's a totally different game. We'd be going to the back net a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, and good point, because I think that's where the game's going to develop a little bit more and evolve.
Yeah,
because I think guys it's been a little bit slow in the evolution, and I'm in the middle of it. I'm playing it. I get it. We just need a little bit more. Hey, you can't bowl there. You can't bowl there. If you bowl there, I'm going to hit you. Yeah. And I'm going to hit you well, and you're not going to get me out just because I've tried to hit you for 5.
But the line fielder now has the reflexes of a leg side.
Yeah, they've got a different job.
And you look at it now, if I was to play on the line, I'd have all the time in the world.
Yeah, because you're that further away from the bat.
And it was just like, but when I did go and play on the line, I was a fish out of water. I know I was. It was just like, shit, that ball's just been hit past me. And, so you look at those things and you just think, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of differences between then and now, and there will be a loss. Even though we will believe that you won't beat us, belief can only go so far.
Are you going to watch World Cup? Are you going to go? Are you going to check it out?
I am.
They're going to stream it, I think, pretty hard out, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I said, you're talking in your podcast about how do we make it exciting. Yeah, I don't know. It's a sport that you actually have to be in it. You just got to be in that.
Yeah, it's up to the commentators to do a really good job in explaining, and like, they do it really well in outdoor now. I think they've got your guys, your technical guys, like, if you listen to Dooley, who I really enjoyed listening to when because he's a really honest commentator. Yeah. He's really good at delving quite in depth about things, but also making things quite simplistic for people to understand what the strategies are and what's happening.
I mean, Max, I'm a little bit bored of Max because everyone has 6s.
T20, yeah.
T20, sorry. Old school.
We didn't even get into your outdoor career, mate. Yeah.
But it was, and I used to have 6s, but geez, these guys
out of the park.
Every ball.
Yeah, I know. It's different, eh?
And it's just like, wow, that's just intense. So for me, the boredom's there. For me, watching T20.
Yeah, I can't do it. Someone said to me last night, funnily enough, they reckon that one-day cricket's going to be forget. It's going to phase out.
So
and I'm like,
nah. T20 and you're going to have
T20 international cricket's probably going to get phased out because there's no enjoyment in that for the players or the spectators, and they all want to watch the league stuff, and all the players want to play the league stuff because that's where all the money is. One-dayers, World Cup's always going to be around, I believe, and Test cricket's always the pinnacle. That's hands down.
Oh, look, you look at it now, and people that I talk to, it must be boring watching 5-day. Actually, no. The likes of Shane Warne, where you knew he was going to get someone. Why? Because he'd just played around with them for a little bit. Yeah. And McGrath, who had just put the ball on that line, and then I'll just change that.
But to me, the one-day game, and like you talk about Test cricket being a game of chess, like one day it's a game of chess.
Yeah.
And it happens within 6 hours, which is great. You can come in and out of the game as a spectator and watch it. Can make sure you're back for the end of the finale.
T20 at 230 runs now. Why aren't you scoring 500 or 600 in a one day? It's just, you look at it, and there's always going to be those big players in any sport, whether it be indoor, whether it be outdoor, and it's what makes the game. And I think you need some of those in indoor. You need some of those superstars, the Jesse Ryders, the Andre Adams, the Chris Kens, the Chris Harrises, the Simon Dawes. They made wonders for the game.
Sure did.
Yeah, and then they went on, and everyone could relate to them because they were there. They were in a centre where, I got to watch Chris Harris, and he came out and had a beer like everybody else.
Yeah.
Wow, that's Chris Harris.
And he talked to people. He was just so
That's
he's
Chris
common,
Harris
right? He just looked after people, man.
You forget that.
Yeah.
Where they're almost separated from anything. They're doing it a lot more now, where it's making fans and players inclusive. But you need those. You need the Jesse Ryders to. I mean, I'd love to go and watch Jesse Ryder play.
Yeah.
He was some guy that I watched in outdoor.
He's good, but
now he's in indoor. It's just like.
But he doesn't he bowls immaculate lengths.
Yep.
He's extremely accurate. Keeps the house down, and in factual fact, you could field him anywhere because he's just naturally gifted.
Yeah.
But when he bats, he's not the outdoor batter, man. He's really conservative. It's really strange. He just looks to play everything late.
Yeah.
Down up everything, get to the other end for his partner, and form a partnership.
And that's why I struggled. I didn't. And you've played outdoor with me. I never played anything under my eyes ever. I think the first time I was in a batting net and I was with braces, and he said, "Right, now feed the ball. I want you to play it late." Bang, hit my pads. Bang, hit my pads. He just said, Do you want to play a bit earlier?
Yeah, just bang it.
Bang! It's hit from a metre in front of my pads. And it was just like, I adapted the game to me as indoors adapted to each individual player.
Yeah.
So it's going forward, I think New Zealand has to look at the game as a whole and reinvent the game. Find something that Australia doesn't have. And recreate it.
Well, I think they're on their path because for so many years they were trying to play the Aussie game and beat the Aussies at their game, and I think we've spoken about it a bit before, but we're definitely playing a New Zealand game now, and we've definitely got the cattle to win it. There's no doubt about it. They're gonna have to play well because Aussies are just gonna be really, really good.
Yeah, Aussie are always 90% or higher, and if they play 80%,
well, under pressure is where.
95.
A typical Aussie, you put them under pressure and let's see what happens, and we'll see what goes there. Let's wrap this pitch up, mate.
Yep.
Awesome chat.
Thanks, Gozzy.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Bro.
Let's do this again. I hope it's not the last one. Fucking really cool to talk to you, man. Thank you.
Awesome, bro.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Awesome.